Good day, I'm James Perry. Welcome to my home. Actually, we're in the middle of Sardinia, in a small little mountain town of Sardinia called Nuoro. And I'm making the video. Today we're going to do two different dishes. We're going to do scones and we're going to do a salmon dish with potatoes. We're going to break the dishes down, or the videos I should say, we're going to break down into two different videos just to be practical. So the first video we're going to do is going to show scones, but the second video we'll do will be for the salmon. But while I'm doing the scones, at the same time, just because some of the components take a little bit more time, I'm just working on some of the potato dishes and some of the other vegetable dishes, which take a little bit longer to cook as I do the scones. So they'll be just cooking away in the background. So scones, an easy dish to do, but sometimes it's actually very easy also at the same time to get wrong. In New Zealand, there's maybe 3 or 4 different recipes that are very popular. There's the Edmonds cookbook recipe, and the Edmonds cookbook recipe calls for milk and butter. And then a lot of, even when I was teaching at the Polytech, we had a lot of teachers that would teach you to use Sprite or some sort of sparkling lemonade. And it actually helps to aerate the scones and make them light and fluffy. But the recipe that I like to use the most, and the one that I'm going to use today, uses cream. There's no butter, there's no milk, it's just 5 simple ingredients. We're going to use sugar, a little bit of salt, flour, soft flour, which is pretty important just to help with to get the scones nice and fluffy, some baking powder just to make them aerated a little bit, some raisins, and heavy cream. And as I said, the most important thing to think about when you're making scones or any other dishes is that you're going to mix all of the dry ingredients together and all of the wet ingredients together. You're going to mix them, but only mix them so they become incorporated together. As soon as they're mixed, you stop. If you overmix them, then you find the scones become quite dry, dense, and not light and fluffy like we like them. So in this bowl, I've just put the sugar. There's already the baking powder and also the flour, the soft flour. So we're going to mix those all together. We're going to add the raisins. And you'll have to excuse me because I'm doing this in my apartment. I don't have a KitchenAid or a mixer. So we're going to mix all the ingredients together, but we're going to mix the scones in the end by hand. So I'm just going to use these gloves. Just for hygiene purposes. We'll put away the scales. And then we're going to add the cream. And as I said, you just have to add all of the cream at once. We're going to start to mix it, but we want to be very careful we don't overmix the flour and the cream together. And this is where the hands come in a little bit handy. And again, you want to just incorporate all of the flour, the cream, and the raisins together. And today here, it's winters here. So it's a little bit colder, so the cream is a little bit more coagulated. So it's a little bit more dense. But the scones themselves, the mixture, should still feel quite moist and not very dry and heavy. So that's it. And of course you can use a KitchenAid. Or any other appliance that you have handy. We're going to dust the table a little bit more with flour just to help to roll it out. Take a roller, dust the roller a little bit, and we're going to roll out the mixture. You don't want to roll it too thin because they're going to be quite high. And if we can, we want to try and keep them in a fairly square or oblong shape. And basta. So the cutter, sometimes New Zealanders just like to cut them with a knife, but I'm going to use a cutter. And it just depends on what size you like them. You can use a small, a little fluted cutter, but I'm just going to use a straight plain cutter. So I've dipped the cutter each time in a little bit of flour, and it just helps the scones to come out nice and easy. So each time I just dip it. And you try and keep the cuts as close together as possible. And that way we're not going to waste any of the mixture. And then lastly, we'll put that together. So, we're just going to put those on a tray. I have a silicone mat. We're just going to plop them on this tray, keeping a little bit of space between them in case they rise a little bit. Scones don't generally tend to spread at all. And we're just going to brush them. I tend to brush them with a little bit of cream on top. And this just gives them a bit of a glaze and a sort of a crunchiness as well. I've preset the oven to 200 degrees Celsius. Because I'm using a convection oven, I've got it just under 200 degrees, and we're going to pop them in the oven, and we're going to cook them for between 15 and 20 minutes, just until they get nice and golden brown. I'm sprinkling just a tiny bit of sugar on top, just to give them a bit of texture. And then they'll just go in the oven. So what we'll do is put them in the oven now. We're going to stop the video here, but as soon as we start the salmon video, they should be ready in about 15 minutes. We'll pull them out and then set them up onto a tray, just so you can see how we would serve them. Hopefully you enjoyed.